harmonium. It's okay, I'm just saying it's leaking here in many places. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, double. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you. I guess I should sing Jai Radha Madhava also. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradari. Bola. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Shodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Madhava Kunja Bihari So that was the first we had a girls team, then the boys team in the percussion. That's a dangerous question to ask. Whatever I say, I get myself in trouble. Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namah Mukham karati vachalam Pangum langate girim Yatkripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kids live in their own universe and adults in their own. If I remember correctly, on Wednesday, this Wednesday commemorated the day when Srimad Bhagavad Gita was spoken. And you see, it seems that you're going to be having a festival on Sunday. So, from now up until Sunday, we shall put some focus on the Bhagavad Gita. Unlike ever before, probably, in the recorded history of humanity, have people been so much putting emphasis on equality. Hare Krishna. Equality seems to be very, very important to modern people. And almost seems like people have become so sensitive to the idea of inequality that they have become not just sensitive but hypersensitive. Now I'm about to make a statement, and I do not wish to disturb anyone or anyone's concepts of equality, but there is something that sets Bhagavad Gita apart from other world religious literature, and I guess that does make it in some ways superior to some of the texts. Before I say that, just to notice that unlike in most of the religious traditions, in the Vedic tradition, the tradition is not defined or based upon a single book. Like in Christianity, for example, it is solely based on the Bible. Bible is the revelatory work, and upon it the whole tradition is based. In Islam, Quran's the book, and in the Vedic tradition or in Krishna consciousness, there is no single book. And not just in Krishna consciousness, but in the whole tradition, there is no single book. There are many, many books. Hare Krishna and welcome. However, it is interesting to note that amongst all of the texts that we find in the Vedic tradition, and we could say very specifically in Krishna consciousness, that Bhagavad Gita has been, historically speaking, by far, the most influential work. And there are reasons for it. There are reasons for it. So we can't say, like in other traditions, that Krishna consciousness is exclusively based upon Bhagavad Gita, because there are other literature, there's other literature as well, like the Bhagavatam, for example, or the Upanishads, etc., etc. We don't take him out. We say that all of these Vedic literatures are revelations. Through them, God, Krishna, has revealed himself and the truth about this world to the humanity. Could you close that door back there, Prabhuji? Just to keep that noise out. If they come in, they can just close the door behind if possible. So there are reasons for which Bhagavad Gita is such an influential work, so that it stands out amongst all of Vedic literature. And there are also reasons why Bhagavad Gita is a unique text in the world of religion. You'd be surprised to, and again, please, especially nowadays when people are hypersensitive about the idea of equality or inequality, the purpose of this is not to put anyone or anything down, but it is really to point out unique characteristics of the Bhagavad Gita that sets it apart from other world religion texts. One is that Bhagavad Gita is a philosophical work. If you look around in different religious traditions, you will find that there's hardly any revelatory book upon which the tradition is based that is wholly philosophical by nature. For example, Srimad Bhagavatam in our tradition is not wholly philosophical by nature. Unlike Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam does not present a thesis and then it works it out and comes up with a conclusion. So in that sense, Srimad Bhagavatam is not a wholly philosophical work, while Bhagavad Gita is. Bible, for example, is not a philosophical work. There's no... there is a story, then there are revelations, and there's some mysticism. In all of the Bible, for example, is a book which is composed of many books. And in those books, 2 books are, or maybe 3, we could say. 3 may be philosophical by nature. One is the book of Ecclesiastes, the other one is the book of Job. Anyone here read the Bible? No one read the Bible here. How come? Book of Ecclesiastes, the book of Job, and the Proverbs. Now, Proverbs are not really philosophical. It's not a really philosophical book. It just is a compilation of sayings of wisdom, we could say. But there's no thesis there that's being presented, elaborated upon, and based on it arrived at some conclusion. Then Book of Job is somewhat of a philosophical work, and then we have Book of Ecclesiastes, which is quite a fascinating presentation, as a matter of fact, and leaves the reader with a very, very important question in mind. And we'll see that that's a question that that brought Arjuna before Krishna as a student. So Bhagavad Gita is specifically a philosophical text by its very nature. And Bhagavad Gita opens... How many of you have read Bhagavad Gita? A few, okay. How many of you have a copy of the Bhagavad Gita? Okay. And how many of you plan to read the Bhagavad Gita? Okay, very well, thank you. I guess they're still struggling with water. It's okay. It'll come eventually. The Bhagavad Gita opens with a tension. And it is an external tension. External tension will eventually turns inward and becomes an internal tension, which is usually how it goes in this world. There's something that happens on the outside, which creates a tension, something that's unpleasant, that pushes on us, and then that in turn creates internal tension. How we respond to the external circumstances will or will not create internal tension. and also the way in which it is going to create internal tension. So Bhagavad Gita opens with a tension, and it is an external tension. And we could say, for people who are spiritually unaware, to them, there's just a couple of emotions which sort of reach the pinnacle of human emotion. And when I was a teenager, which was quite a few years ago, thank you. You can set it on there, yeah. Thank you. When I was a teenager, here's some more water. Thank you. When I was a teenager, I grew up in a family where several nights a week the whole family would sit in a sofa and watch movies. Would sit on a sofa and watch movies, and even as a teenager, I was able to see. Well, I became quite bored really quick, because these people, whoever were making these movies, not that I have something against the media of the movies, but I have a lot against movies without quality, and these movies would always present as the pinnacle of human emotional experience two things: love and violence. Actually, not love, but lust. Lust and violence, these two things, as if that's the pinnacle of human emotional experience, violence, death, like that. Two guys fighting over a girl, and the bad guy is winning, and then at the end the good guy wins, and he knocks out the bad guy, and he rides off into the sunset with the maiden. Every single one. Talking about stupefaction. So Bhagavad Gita opens with, externally speaking, with one of the two most intense human external experiences, that is violence, and the ultimate form of it, war. Anyone here been a soldier? I was a soldier in combat, and as a young man. And what impressed me about war is what it tends to bring out in people. It's just fantastic. There was this one woman, an artist. And artists sometimes can be quite eccentric people, but she thought to do a social experiment. So, and this is a well-known artist. She's a Serbian woman living in New York many years. And so she invited, in a room about this size, she invited people, and you could come by invitation only. So some 50, 60 people gathered in the room. And when they came into the room, they found the artist, this woman, standing in the front of the room, and in front of her was a table. And on the table she lined up different items: scissors, what do you call that? Spoon for cooking, what do you call that? Spatula? Well, spatula, I guess, all right, spatula, will do. And knife, fork, spoon, flowers, flower petals, needles, all kinds of items, paper, she laid in front of her. And then there was a message. And the message was signed by her, so obviously she wrote the message, and it was a message to everyone. And she said that she was going to stand there for, I forget how many hours. Good amount, something like 4 or 5 hours, quite long, quite some time. That she was going to stand there and do nothing. And then they can do with her whatever they want to do. And this off-the-wall bit woman was ready to really accept anything they're going to do. And so people they were, walking around, looking, checking out her, checking out the items on the table. Then someone took a flower and put in her hair. And then someone readjusted their clothes a little bit. Then someone took off an article of clothes. And little by little, as the hours went by, the crowd started to become more intense. And not just more intense, but more violent. To the point that they were cutting her, they were touching her private parts, pulling on her hair. I mean, they're just going crazy. And so that's in the time of peace. In the time of war, people go nuts. And what they're ready to do to each other is just absolutely mind-numbing. It just goes to show what is the potential of a typical human. As a soldier, there was one boy. We came together 2 days apart. We reported for service. And when he came in, it was just a soft-spoken boy who, he was 20. As a young man of 20, he lacked attitude. He was not defined. He was not a defined person. He was somewhat weak and soft, and etc., etc. And then 10 months later, this person was, and I apologize, but he was collecting photographs of dead bodies which he made dead. That's the human potential. So when the humans, when they're allowed to be violent, they can be quite violent. And so this is how Bhagavad Gita opens with the, we could say, ultimate external tension. And that is the tension of war. And the atmosphere is becoming dense and tense. You can smell the danger. Inevitable death of God knows how many. And there was Arjuna in the middle of it. And so in one point Arjuna, in order to assess the situation, there's one thing that happened in the Bhagavad Gita, right there in the beginning, and that's the thing which made this external tension in Arjuna turn inwardly. In other words, from the external tension, it became internal. Those of you who have read Bhagavad Gita, would you know what that was? What is the thing that made this external tension become an internal tension for Arjuna? Say that again?
He didn't want to kill his grandfather.
Yeah, but there's a specific detail. Yes. That's good, you're right. But there's a very specific detail. And Prabhupada says this in the purport. But you can try.
I was thinking more like that, even if I were to win, it would be as good as a defeat.
Way before that. Way before that. And Krishna knew it. Krishna, yes, it was.
Krishna tells him about the soul. We are not this body, but the soul.
Before that. Tension. You know what the tension is? You know what tension is? Yeah. That did not create tension. That removed the tension. But there's one thing, and Krishna just knew it.
Behold the army that...
Yes. Give this man some Mahaprasadam. It almost seems that Krishna wanted Arjuna to experience not only external tension, but wanted this external tension to turn into internal tension. And so when they came in between the armies, Krishna told Arjuna, almost prophetic. And Prabhupada points this out. Arjuna, look at these people on this side and look at these people on that side. What do you think? And Arjuna had crisis immediately. Prabhupada said that Krishna knew. And so Arjuna then experienced crisis. And typically when we're in the position of external crisis, we tend to behave like an animal. We merely want to defend ourselves. But when the tension becomes internal, that's when we become philosophers. So Arjuna, having this external tension become internal, naturally before Arjuna presented a question. A question presented itself before Arjuna, and that was the most important question that can ever be asked by anyone, of anyone. And that is the existential question. In other words, the reason for which why do I even exist? And this world is such, it functions like this. As in the case of Bhagavad Gita or Arjuna, where we could say that Krishna induced the internal tension, so similarly this world is also designed by Krishna. That war was designed by Krishna. And Krishna directly excited in Arjuna, or initiated in Arjuna, the internal tension, and therefore brought about in Arjuna the existential question. It's a good question. Why does anything exist? It could have been otherwise. Could have been that it did not exist. Or that you do not exist. But we some or other do exist. I remember asking this of my mother when I was a child. And she got a little spooked. I said, why am I mom? And why are you my mom? Why not somebody else? Beginning of the philosophical search. A friend of mine told me that his son asked him this question. He didn't know what to tell him. He says, "What do you mean? You should encourage this question in the child. It's the most important question." But people usually quiet the child and just tell the child to finish the school. That's the insanity of modern times. We're endeavoring and we don't know what's the value of that endeavor. We're climbing a wall before we have determined which wall is worth climbing. So as Krishna arranged for that battle, we know that Krishna arranged that the two armies meet at the battlefield. Krishna arranged that this external tension in Arjuna becomes an internal one. So similar, this whole world is arranged by Krishna. And the internal tension is a God-given thing. It's not the time to go to a shrink. You know what a shrink is? Who knows what a shrink is? Psychiatrist. It's just a, what do you call that? Street lingo. So it is rather a God-given thing. In other words, Italians call pasta divine, but that's questionable whether pasta is really divine. But this question and this tension that appears in the mind, typically in the mind of every person. I remember not only myself, but all of my friends felt this tension in themselves when they were kids. But then their parents, the society, just shut them up. And made them bury that question. Instead of made them pull out that question, God-given question. So that's the opening of the Bhagavad Gita. There we have Arjuna with the existential question, with crisis, existential crisis from which comes existential question. And Arjuna was so confused under this pressure, as often is the case. Arjuna was so confused, didn't know what to do. And so he turned to Krishna for help. And what's interesting now at this point, that Krishna did not give him a simple answer. And I will return to the Bible. In the book of Ecclesiastes, we have a similar situation where the author of this book is noticing how everything comes and goes. The sun rises and the sun sets. People take birth and people die. Crops grow up and they, wither away, not wither, perish. Whatever we do, it just disappears. And so he had this question, so what's the value of life? Because whatever I do now, in due course of time, will be gone. But then the people say, it's for my children. But your children will also die. It's for their children, but they will also they will also come to an end. So what is the meaning in it all? Why even have kids? Or why even live? It's a good question. And so then the author, the biblical author, gives possible questions, but he says, but I enjoy a stroll in the sun. I enjoy taking care of my garden. I enjoy the sweet words of my children. Okay, I like that, but where's the value in it? Where's the meaning and purpose in it? And so he's brought back again to the same question. And in this way it goes back and forth, back and forth. And then at the end, if you're the reader, if you read this, by the end you really, really ask yourself this question. For God's sake, why do I live? Why do I exist? And now people are typically are really lazy. And especially in this age of Kali. Manda, sumanda, matayo. They're bad or lazy, and they're badly instructed. Sumanda means beautifully bad. Su means beautiful. Like Sunanda, beautiful ecstasy. And so especially in this age of Kali, and you can see everything proliferates in this age of Kali, except thoughtful existence. Disneyland, for God's sake, people go to Disneyland. If there is Donald Duck kids, Donald Duck does not exist. Got it? I hurt you. Broken the illusion. Oh no. Even amongst devotees, activities such as Shravanam and Kirtanam, philosophical inquiry, is not the most popular activity. People engage themselves in all kinds of activities, but the least amount of time they spend on that which is actually most important, and that is inquiry. And so people are typically lazy. Why am I saying this? Because this is about Bhagavad Gita, even though I'm mentioning Bible, because this book, biblical book, is a very good example. Why? Because the author, after having made you really, really think about this, at the end he does not give you the answer. Because he didn't give you the answer, and by now you're really wanting to know what the answer is. Therefore now you begin to inquire. Atato Brahma Jigyas. It is important that one wants to know. Even in the religious domain, very few people want to know. They just want to do a few rituals and get some blessings so they can have a good, decent terrestrial life, which is otherwise pointless. Because at the end, everything evaporates. So similarly, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna does not tell Arjuna merely fight or don't fight, or go shopping, Arjuna, and you'll feel better. But Krishna tells him everything. Krishna tells him everything. And he begins with the first thing. You know, Arjuna, you are not that physical body. Which is actually quite interesting, because also in most religious traditions, this is not clearly understood or even clearly taught. The basic concept. And so Krishna begins with that, and then he works it all out. From that point to the end point. And works out all the tensions in human mind and how these tensions are solved by different concepts of spiritual practices. And in this way, Bhagavad Gita encompasses literally everything. So it is, for example, in comparison to Mahabharata, or in comparison to the Srimad Bhagavatam, in comparison to Bible or Quran, Bhagavad Gita is a small book. There's only roughly 700 verses. Some versions have a couple extra, and some versions have a couple of fewer verses. 700 verses does not make a large book. It's a quick reading matter. But somehow or other it has been the most influential work of all of the Vedic texts. And this is one reason. Like scholars call this a synthetic work. Synthetic does not mean that it's made of plastic, but synthetic in the sense that it's a synthesis. What's a synthesis? Does anyone know what a synthesis is?
To assimilate and put together.
Yes, assimilation. To assimilate, put it all together. You have analysis, which is taking apart, and then you have synthesis, which means to put it all together. Sin is, in Latin, is similar to sam in Sanskritam, like samkirtana, samnyas. Samznachi means to put together, completely, gather it all up. And so sin in Latin means the same thing. So synthesis means to bring it all together. And so that's what Bhagavad Gita does. It puts it all together, and it puts it therefore all in perspective. Most of the works concern themselves with one or two or three aspects, or some aspects of our existence, spiritual life, etc. But Bhagavad Gita is really a wholesome work in the sense that it puts it all in perspective, and that is why throughout history Bhagavad Gita has been very interesting to so many readers from so many different traditions. And because it's a philosophical text, it is not really a sectarian text. You could be of any tradition, of any race, color, creed, gender, religion. Absolutely does not matter, because it's a purely philosophical text. And it addresses that which we all suffer from. This world is a world of tension. This is a world of pleasure, but it is also a world of pain. There is, I forget the author's name, he said, if it is painful, at least make it meaningful. And so typically for all thoughtful minds, there is the need to not merely suffer in this world, but if we're going to suffer, then we should at least suffer for, make it meaningful. And so therefore, people since the dawn of creation have sought to extrapolate meaning from this place of, well, it's not purely suffering, but there's a good amount of suffering in this world. And so that's the Bhagavad Gita. It opens with that tension, which is external tension, which then turns into internal tension. And then there's the rest of the Bhagavad Gita, which solves that tension, not on the mere basis of the details in which Arjuna found himself, but on the basis of principles. So for anyone who's a thoughtful person and who's interested in making their life meaningful, Bhagavad Gita is just absolutely of a tremendous interest, because it covers it all. A couple of other things really quick about Bhagavad Gita. One is that rarely do we find in the history of religion such intimacy between humanity and divinity, or between God and humans. The Bhagavad Gita is a conversation with God. It's quite intimate. In the Bible you have only Moses going up a mountain, disappearing for a month, and then coming back and claiming that that God spoke to him. He didn't really ask questions, but here we have a human being, Arjuna, asking philosophical questions directly to God. Very intimate. And not only that, but throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and Arjuna call each other by varieties of names, out of intimacy and affection. This is another fantastic thing. By reading Bhagavad Gita, one can really feel the warmth of God's concern, of Krishna's concern. I shall stop there because it's 8:30 and the rest we'll do tomorrow morning. So are there any questions perhaps or comments? Yes?
You mentioned people seeking equality. Did you already answer that? Because I wasn't 100% clear.
Oh, I didn't even attempt to answer that. I just wanted to clarify that these days people are people have sought equality since ever, but the idea of inequality really offends modern people, like never before. And so modern people are extremely sensitive to the idea of inequality. And I was about to speak of Bhagavad Gita as a unique text, so I didn't want to be misunderstood and have someone feel offended because I'm exalting Bhagavad Gita, but I was pointing out some unique features of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, anything else perhaps? Okay, very well. Thank you for your attention, which you could have given to something else, but you didn't. You invested it here. And I had the fortune and the responsibility to influence you. Okay. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. 30-minute continuation of discussion on the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Okay, Hare Krishna and all glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki.